I think most people have it from most corners of the British and Irish Isles. It's going to be a 3-0 whitewash, but then, and I'm hoping it's going to be closer.
Yeah.
It is looking like it's going that way, but Australia, importantly, have had some vital additions back into their team. And I think maybe back to like 2017 in the tour I was involved in against New Zealand, and then going back to 13. Say in 17, we lost the first game, the Lions, quite convincingly, actually.
Yeah.
New Zealand looked quite convincing winners, and people probably thought the same thing from that first test. But there's something about that desperation of, if you lose the first test, you do still know you live to fight another day. There's 2 more test matches. But second test, it is all or nothing. You know, if you lose, you're gone. There's the series over. And Australia reacted that way in 2013. The Lions won the first test very closely, and they bounced back, had a huge emotional peak in that second test and won to level it up. So I do think that the Lions are the best team and they're red-hot favourites to win. But there's something about the emotion of that absolute must-win scenario that Australia have today, which will hopefully bring the best out of Australia. And for the neutral to be 1-1 going into the last would be quite exciting.
I saw a clip on Instagram actually earlier this week. It was Matt Burke and Michael Hooper, and they were sort of saying that, oh, well, we won the second half, so we're carrying the momentum into this. Is that? Are they trying to kid themselves? Because the Lions could have been out of sight at half-time last week.
No, you're right. It felt like at 50 minutes, the Lions knew the job was done. And there's probably a little bit of self-preservation, which naturally, like, you can't help it, which might creep in, knowing there's another 2 test matches. But I mean, from an Australian perspective, that is what you do. Not from like any sports person, like they'll look at the impact the Australian bench had in the last 20 minutes, which did have a better impact than the Lions bench. And I think that's why the Lions have mixed up their bench for this test match. There's been quite a few changes there because they probably didn't bring the energy that was required. Australia did actually finish that game stronger. So you hold on to all these small wins to try and give you a bit of momentum, even if it's psychological. It all counts. So I think Australia will genuinely be looking at that last 30 and be quite happy with that performance.
Lots of talk about Garry Ringrose in the build-up to this. Firstly, how commendable a decision that he's put his health first.
You know, the Lions, it's one thing, it's always team-first mentality, and people find it hard to understand that. They think, there's naturally going to be a little bit of, like, selfishness there, but totally. It's always been preached. It's always Lions first, and, you know, all the players know about the ex-players and the players before who've put the team first, and that's just Garry doing that. Like, Garry could go out and have a test match number 13 shirt, like favourites to win it, could be lifting the trophy, but he's been like, no, it's not the best thing for the team. I'm not quite ready. He's had some concussion issues in the past, so he's pulled himself out. But that's exactly what the Lions is about. You know, you'd much rather be part of a winning test series and putting the team first and maybe being a bit selfish for the team and maybe causing a mistake because of it. So very admirable from Garry to do that.
It means a centre pairing of Bundee Aki and Hugh Jones. Now, for me, building up to the first test, the centres was like almost the main position of strength. You could have thrown any 4 of those in, any combination of them, and it would have been an incredibly strong partnership. How do you see Bundee and Hugh going? Yeah,
you're exactly right. I think, I probably can't remember a test series where we've had 4 centres, obviously 2 start and there's 2 sort of remaining in the squad, but we've had 4 centres so evenly matched.
Yeah.
And they've mixed and matched all of them. And I think you're right. To be honest, you could play any combination of 4, and I think most fans would look at each other and be like, yeah, great.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So the Lions are in a very lucky situation that they can play all of them. They're not a combination who played together at international level. So early in the tour, the Lions did experiment a Scotsman with an Irishman. They're only Scottish or Irish centres in the tour squad at the moment. So they experimented a Scotsman with an Irishman. Obviously, they haven't played together. They did that for the first 3 games. And then they put the guys who played for their countries together for the next 4 test matches, thinking, let's just go with combinations. But they've been forced their hand a little bit. Tui Pelotu, tight hamstring, Garry Ringrose with concussions. They've had to put in Aki and Hugh Jones. So they're not from the same country, but there's enough continuity there for the Lions to cause some damage, and they're both awesome players as well. So exciting midfield for the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. Other changes, Andrew Porter and Ollie Chessum both coming in, and Chessum into the second row as well. So what do they bring differently?
Chessum brings physicality, really good athlete. I think Porter, rock solid at scrum time, but I think Genge's role, so Ellis Genge was the loose head, playing number 1 in the first test. He's now on the bench. Now, people who don't probably watch rugby think, Genge's been dropped. I don't think he's been dropped. I think it's part of that bench aspect that I mentioned earlier about bringing energy. Genge, anyone who's seen Genge play knows he's full of energy, but leadership as well. Lions need that in the last 30 minutes. Arguably, the last 20 minutes of a test match is the most important.
Yeah.
So really, you want to have a strong team to finish. So I think Genge coming off the bench alongside, like a Jack Morgan's been picked, has been one of the form players, and Owen Farrell's been drafted into the bench. So I think the Lions bench looks stronger than bench in Test 1. So I think that's Genge's role. He sort of just slipped his role into being on the bench play. But Porter, again, this is the beautiful thing with the Lions, is you can chop and change. You've got so many class players. It doesn't really make a huge difference. There's more horses for courses.
We've spoken loads about the bench. You mentioned Owen Farrell on it. We'll come on to Jack Morgan in a bit as well. Blair Kinghorn on the bench this evening as well. That's great to see, because I think he was probably people's first choice to have that 15 jersey, and his tour was kind of a bit disrupted.
Yeah, he came late on tour because he was playing in the top 14, the French domestic league, which finishes a lot later than the UK domestic league. So he only came out for game 4, I believe, and then he picked up a knock on his wrist as well. So then he missed another couple of games, but he's back now. And like you say, he would have probably been 90% of people's starting choice at fullback. So he played on Tuesday, came through that okay. And this is the hard thing with the Lions tour. Like, you never play 4 days later, but that's the thing of a Lions tour. He played on Tuesday, he's on the bench now Saturday, and he's got to be ready. Same with Owen Farrell. So I think the Lions will hope to get them on for, you know, a good sort of 20-30 minutes, come through unscathed, and I think probably Kinghorn will be favourite then to start in Test 3 next Saturday.
Now, Sam, I know when it comes to the Lions, it's all about that badge. It doesn't matter which country you're coming from. But it must have broken a little bit of your heart. There wasn't a single Welshman involved in the 23 for the first test. There is now. Jack Morgan, the sole Welshman left on the tour, on the bench. I mean, he had a great shot of even getting the starting 7 jersey, I thought. What sort of impact can he make?
Yeah, I guess for people listening who probably just don't know loads about the Lions, so obviously the Lions play every 4 years. And then obviously they're normally pretty well represented by all the 4 nations. Now, when Jack Morgan didn't play in the first test and in a warm-up before that, it was the first time a Welshman hadn't been in a single matchday squad, not just test, even warm-up game. Say you play 10 games on tour, back in the day was 20 games. It was the first time there was a game without a single Welshman since 1889 or something ridiculous. You know, so it just shows there's always been a strong Welsh contingency. So you can imagine back home where I'm from, when there was no involvement of Jack Morgan, or people were crying out for him. But it's Lions.
Okay, I'm picturing Welshmen supporting Australia in the first test.
Do you know, there was jokes going around, like, you know, you can imagine the social media jokes of the Welsh team. They were like dubbing it over with the Australian national anthem. But it's only fans having a laugh. Players, like, somebody asked me, like, are you annoyed about it? I'm like, well, this is the Lions. You have to put all that to one side. But it is nice. It is nice that there's a Welshman now representing the Lions. He's on the bench, deservedly so. He's the sort of player who Welsh captain. He deserves to be a Lions test player. So I'm sure he'll come on, but I'm sure he'll come on and do
well. Absolutely. And 100,000 people inside the iconic MCG tonight. That old adage is just playing the game and not the occasion, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fans don't put players off. I'm sure there's sports people listening to this now, and they'll agree, like, you know, if you're brand new to that, if you've never been in front of a crowd and you play in front of 100,000, it's like, oh, wow. But the thing is, you know, as players, well, yeah, you might be playing in front of 100,000, but there's going to be 3 million watching at home, more maybe. So, like, the crowd isn't actually the daunting bit. It's actually when the game's televised, you think, oh, wow, this is now the eyeballs. The crowd is the good, fun bit. You feed off that energy. So the lads were used to playing in front of, you know, Twickenham, 80,000. So the English lads are probably used to playing in front of the biggest crowds. The Welsh boys playing in front of 75 pretty regularly. But 100 is that little bit extra, you know. So MCG is a pretty special ground to play in.
Yeah, it is iconic, absolutely.